Welcome to Team Futurism. Today we have a couple of topics to jump into, but I want to start off with one topic that has just been creeping into my news cycle this week. And semi-related to Israel-Palestine, we just promised ourselves we're not going to get too deep in the weeds on that because we definitely could, but we're going to try not to. But okay, Devin, so a couple of things have cropped into my feed, especially my Twitter feed this week. And it's three
It's
things.
X, Peter.
X, correct.
Your X feed.
The platform previously known as Twitter. The first was Tesla has their robot, right? And it showed up in my feed doing yoga. There was that. And then I saw Disney has a new robot. Have you seen this? Where it does like this, it's like this dog thing that does this cute little like almost like a dance and it has all these gestures and it's like cute. Like that's the word.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay, yeah, and it's actually kind of like awesome. It's kind of like, whoa,
It's
this will
cute.
definitely be at a Disney theme park very soon.
Real dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. The third thing that I've seen is the military has one of those like Black Mirror style dog robots that has a rocket launcher attached to it.
Oh,
And
I've seen the sniper one. I didn't see the rocket launcher one.
so this thing just like they put out like in the desert and it has a rocket launcher on its back. And they're like, okay, guys, right.
Oh my god, dude.
And it's insane. Like there's a whole video that like walks through like the dog. Okay, so this is my interesting thought is that like how long is it going to be until we know these things are here, right? They're here. They're not like you're not seeing these things on the street, but they're here. And how long is it going to be till these things doing these various activities start merging into one robot that does all of these things so that you see the cute Disney style dog doing cute dances, but it also looks like a humanoid, like the Tesla thing, but it also carries a fucking rocket launcher. A dog robot.
Oh, shit.
And, okay, and this is where this ties into like me not wanting to get into Israel Palestine, but this is where it becomes relevant. You know how like it's basically for sure that Israel is going to invade Palestine, right?
Yeah, I mean, functionally, they already. I mean, a bombing campaign is like an invasion. It's just like, yeah. I mean, they're just not there yet, but
it's pretty. It seems like it's almost guaranteed there will be boots on the ground going into Gaza, and that's
unfortunately looks that way. Yeah.
We are just. This is my thing. We are just a couple of years away from those not being humans walking into Gaza, but those being like the Tesla bots that look like Disney characters that have rocket launchers. We are like so close to this because we keep talking about how like, oh,
it's just like the Pixar lamp fucking hopping its way into Gaza.
or like the Tesla robot is so close to being like a sexy humanoid creature thing because they can make it like the sexy woman version that also carries a rocket launcher.
Giant tits, fucking sex robots with rocket launchers invading Gaza. Holy
I know
shit.
that like in Black Mirror, you see like when this happens, it's like little bees that buzz around and like homes. So like that maybe will be part of this too, like mini robots. But like my imagination, this is where like so many movie scripts could be based off this too, is just like seeing the combination of these robots and then all of a sudden the world is completely bizarre place. And then the next step is that Gaza gets a little bit of extra funding from Iran or whatever the case might be. And like the person answering the door also isn't a person at these houses going to door. It's another robot. And then we literally are in that like sci-fi scenario where it's just like robots fighting with each other. And I feel like right now we are definitely not there. That's definitely not going to happen. But we are so close. And it's like kind of crazy to think about what this particular conflict could have looked like if it had happened 10 years from now. Anyway. I just want
to. Hello, Palestinian citizen. This is definitely not a Jewish robot. Fucking door opens. Hello, not a Jewish robot. This is definitely not a Palestinian robot.
Maybe we don't have to make this political, but I don't know. What are your thoughts about like all these like various crazy robots that are like each individually out of sci-fi, but like what are your thoughts on them?
Boy, as you're kind of talking about it, I'm struck by two realities. One is that we already have like the kind of infrastructure for this idea, which is drones and drone pilots, and that like it seems that it having a human operated drone removes them so fundamentally from the process of killing that it just makes it a little too easy to do. However, on the kind of flip side of that, the absolute polar opposite is the idea that kind of strikes me is that when the fighting is done mostly by robots, the calculus can probably be a little bit more correct because it's not so laden with the value of the human life that's going in. I mean, unfortunately, if the power dynamics in the world stay the same in the way that we kind of as like a human cohort as humanity kind of interpret each other, stays the same, it's going to be dangerous for any country that doesn't have that technology. But if we really are kind of like hurtling towards a more, I don't know, agnostically moralistic society, which I think we're trying to do, you know, in a certain way, I think that could maybe alleviate some of the decisions that get made from stress, from like there's just all these kind of human aspects to war that if you take it away, it just becomes less fraught, you know?
Well, I remember this crazy anecdote that during Vietnam, the kill rate for Americans with like rifles was like super low, like way lower than it should have been. And so some psychologists studied this and they realized that all of the soldiers were intentionally aiming just a couple feet above the quote enemy's head. And it was just because that whole thing you're talking about, like no one actually wants to kill another person, maybe unless you literally have been brainwashed from a young age that these people aren't like they're subhuman. Like that's, you know, a lot of people are talking about maybe that's what happened in with the Israel attack is like, how do you dismember babies' bodies and stuff like that unless you're thinking this is not a real human, this is a subhuman sort of a situation. Because it's like psychologically, no one wants to kill other people if you're like halfway psychologically modern and healthy, right?
Seriously.
So yeah, removing that and having a robot do the drone strikes as we already do, and you know whatever the case may be. Yeah, I think it removes a lot of just that human element that is, I don't know, little scary.
Maybe some of the animosity, I think, you know, I think maybe if warfare is increasingly mechanized, there maybe is an ability to be more calculated about the way that it's executed. Because at the end of the day, like all these, not all of them, but so many wars are being fought for people's personal egos and the way that people have been hurt by literally concepts, you know, and sometimes by other people, but rarely, right? Like rarely is it the person that's hurt by another person that controls a country and it goes and invades another country. It's like it's a philosophical harm that they've suffered or you know, a psychological harm that they feel that they've suffered that makes them want to go somewhere else and hurt people. And I don't know, maybe if we have if there's just less of that human to human hurt happening, war looks kind of silly, doesn't it? You know, when it's
most war is economic, probably. I think the Israel-Gaza thing is like a snowflake case that it's hard to generalize about because
Russia Ukraine is kind of one of those like perceived slight type of wars where it's like maybe it's economic in some function, but it seems much more kind of like ideological and you know, in a certain way.
Putin said that he wants to get the USSR back. He wants all those countries back. He's just straight up said that. So I'm taking him at his word on that one. Yeah.
He's like a middle-aged mom in the 90s with his Beanie Babies, dude. They're not worth shit anymore, Putin.
Yeah, well, I mean, my brain just immediately went to the war scenarios with these robots, but there's also lots to talk about, which we don't need to get into today, but about how these will be companionship and they will be like household servants doing your dishes. And I mean, who knows what the future is going to hold with these things, but like right now, the initial rollout of what these robots are good for, it's just going to keep expanding for what they can do. And this is Elon Musk's vision, is to have his little Tesla robot be able to perform all the, you know, household tasks for you and then some, right? Plus be tapped into the internet to answer all your questions or whatever. So yeah, the future is going to be weird. And this is a topic that, I don't know, it's bizarre people aren't talking about it more, with the possibilities and just how kind of crazy it is that all of a sudden we're living in a Star Wars film where we have R2-D2 and the other robots' names, whatever they are.
I think it would be awesome. I mean, I think I'm a bit of a technological hope, like a hopefulist or something like that. I don't even know what I would call myself, but I'm hopeful about the way that technology unfolds and like increasingly makes our lives easier, because I find that humans, as much as we want to believe that everyone's going to become some like angry incel, you know, like, and like, oh yeah, like guys are only going to want to fuck their sex robots and like, or whatever, you know, like whatever people fantasize the like dark functionality is of these robots, it's like, obviously there's going to be a huge cohort of people that get addicted to fucking robots, but like most of us are just still going to want to hike every once in a while and like have like relationships with physical people. Like the simulacra is not sufficiently advanced yet that I think it's convincing anybody to divest from reality.
Yeah, like, or get this, once you get addicted to your sex robot, you will go to your robot therapist and they will help you get over it. Okay.
Yeah, dude. I'm into it.
Okay, well, speaking of therapy, maybe that's our segue into the topic that you wanted to talk about today. Health and therapy.
Dude, you know, it's interesting. That is a great segue, because I think that the thing that I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I've maybe even for the last like 5 years, I've been really waiting for technology to catch up with, I don't even know, catch up with what, but it's, I have medical problems, not serious medical problems, but like,
like
kind of
the other day, right?
Huh?
Like last year you had a knee thing, I remember.
Oh yeah, I've got like a half torn ACL, I've got a protruding
Mm-hmm.
disc in my neck, I've got a polyp in my nose, I've got a cyst on my tonsil, you know, it's like, dude, I'm a regular Larry David over here, all right? But every time I interface with the medical establishment, I'm like, I walk away from it feeling really mixed feelings, but most of what I end up feeling is like, these people don't know shit. And it's like, I don't mean that as a dig to the medical profession, but you got to figure, you get your medical license, and like, it's not like you have to go to continuing education to continue to be a doctor. But if you got your medical license 20 or 30 years ago, are you even a fucking doctor anymore? Like realistically, like, do you really have like a good grip on what's going on in the human condition writ large, or in the body, you know, as a kind of integrated organism? Like, how much have we learned in the last 20 or 30 years?
Mm-hmm.
And I find myself just in this position where I'm like lusting for an AI, some kind of artificial intelligence that takes all of your biometric data and synthesizes fucking answers for you. It's not like the body is the mind, where it's this infinitely complex web that we just don't really even have that much of a grip on what's going on in there. The body is pretty mechanical. I mean, the body and the mind are integrated, and there is like a push and pull against each other, but there's so many processes in the body that are strictly mechanical. And there's so much ability to measure those kind of, that biometric data is accessible now through testing, even if you know, I don't want to digress. But what's not really available is, why can I not take all of the blood tests that I've had over the last 5 years, or this, you know, whatever, and put it into some kind of application that gives me insights on my health, on what I should look out for over the next 5 or 10 years. It's all going to a person to interpret that biometric data, which to me feels like going to a fucking oracle and asking them to read my chicken bones, dude. You know, I'm like, can you please, you know, can you interpret this data? And it's like, that's not a good job for a human, because that data isn't really fucking interpretive. It just needs to be read in a way. And we pay people to go to school for all this time so they can read that data back to us. But functionally, in the medical profession, very little of that time is spent actually figuring out what's going on in the meat suit. A lot of it's figuring out how pharmaceuticals interact with our bodies, you know, because there's this absolute cornucopia of pharmaceuticals that doctors have to understand how they interact with our bodies, and there's so much of their time is dedicated to that. For example, I go to the doctor primary care doctor. I have a protruding disc in my neck. She's like, yeah, I don't know. I kind of have back problems too. I'm like, what, man? Like, then who the fuck do I go to? Because you're the doctor. Like, you are literally there's no one above you. There's no like super doctor, right? There's just doctors for people who have more money than me. And yeah, so I thank you for entertaining my diatribe, but I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for either some kind of application that interprets your biometric data, or for Christ's sake, send some little robot scurrying around in my blood vessels like Osmosis Jones and tell me what's going on in there.
Yeah, I agree with this on every level. One thing that's been fascinating to me is I have a young baby, and so she has to go to the doctor a lot.
Right.
And what's been interesting to see is that the daycare providers are more accurate with diagnosing what she has versus her pediatrician.
Whoa.
Sent her home one time because they're like, oh, she must have RSV. Like RSV was going around. And the doctor was like, no, I don't think so. She doesn't look like it, doesn't have the symptoms, but we took the test came back, she sure did. And the doctor even said in the little note that he got back, oh, I guess that, daycare providers, have this more dialed in than I do. And that's just one case. There have been multiple of those where the daycare was like, nah, she has this and she should go home. And part of it is like that human element. You go into the doctor's office and the doctor kind of like wants to give you what you want to hear, right? And we're like, got to get our baby back in daycare, right? And so he's like, oh, it looks fine. I think that doctors pick up on those human signals a little bit, whereas like, I mean, it's more complicated than that. That's maybe just one level here, but to the broader point, AI is going to, from what I've been able to glean, just like, looking this up a little bit, it's going to revolutionize medicine all the way from like clinical trials to, when you go to the doctor to when you get your prescription. The whole thing, the whole entire process is going to be completely turned upside down and like for the better.
Yeah.
And I am so excited about this too, because
when?
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking when? Please, before I'm old. Like, please, before I'm like fucking falling apart, man.
This is what's so frustrating too. Again, it's like a lot of things like that we talk about these days, like the government, is that we have ways to fix problems. Like here it is, guys. This is the solution, and then it just gets bogged down. So nothing like actually does change, right? We talk about so many examples of that with the political system, but it is kind of like that. But I do actually have more faith that in the long-ish run, I do think that medicine is going to win out. And here's the thing, because there is so much money to be made for somebody.
I know, man.
And
healthy bodies make no one money. They're so cheap to run, you know.
But like if you're getting your blood monitored by something, if there's some app that's interpreting it, whatever the process is, if clinical trials are being run and you're like, there is a company on the back end of that's processing that data and collecting it and storing it and that sort of thing. So yeah, like one thing that I heard about first like years ago, but I probably is still relevant, is that how like every person on the planet has obviously like unique DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Once we start collecting more data from people, we're gonna be like, oh, that person, they just have the cure to cancer in their DNA, so we're gonna buy it from them for $5 billion, right? And I think that we're just gonna like that's part of this whole like data collection thing. And there are people, even individuals, I think probably are gonna be whole industries that right now don't even exist. Like that's not even a thing, but that will be like down the line.
I'd just like to see the human condition sorted through in a more, I think just like a more methodical way that humans are incapable of doing. One of the things that, the way that we segued into this was with mental health, which seems like such a black box because we don't really understand what consciousness is. And so, mental health is a strange interface between the inner workings of our mind and the way that we kind of execute those through our bodies in space and socially. However, I think about how many great TED Talks I've seen about the mind. and about emotional states and conditions. And I think immediately I'm drawn to Brene Brown, who like I've watched so much of her work on shame, on depression, you know, and the insights that she has, they're truly remarkable. But she's just one of a cohort of people who have remarkable insights on the human condition, on the way that we process information mentally. To have a chat GPT, like, I don't understand why this isn't happening right now. If we have an AI that's as powerful as chat GPT, why can we not upload everything that we know about shame? And then you go and you say, hey, I'm feeling this feeling in my body. And chat GPT is like, that might be shame, you know, and what, you know, here's a bunch of strategies that you can use to kind of, you know, deal with that in your life. I think that the medical problem costs society so much money. Obesity and depression and all of this, it costs society billions, trillions probably of dollars every year in lost productivity, and just in like actual medical costs. And then the social ills, which depression kind of like shares, you know, the Venn diagram where it's like physical and social. That stuff also is costing like our productivity, as a society. It costs us an immeasurable amount every day. Every like father that's like hitting their child because he's depressed or because he doesn't have good tools to deal with what's going on in his life, or vice versa, the mother that's like screaming at her children, you know, whatever. There should be some kind of technological tool that people can access that has like answers, man, not thoughts, because I think that's where a lot of people get bogged down, where they're like, well, what am I can't go and just absorb all of this information from all these places and synthesize it. I don't have time. This isn't my area of expertise. You know, it's like I need to be able to put in what I'm struggling with, and I need something to give me some kind of like really cohesive insight on how I can move forward and not be suffering in this way. Like that to me has to be the chief goal of artificial intelligence. Like, who the fuck cares if it's writing a paper for you, or like why is that the first thing that we're using it for? It's like to access information again, you know? And it's like, no. We have access to all the information. We need something to synthesize that information for us in a meaningful way now.
Yeah, I mean, there was a TED Talk about AI and mental health, and I was able to finish it because the guy speaking just happened to be painfully boring. So,
dear AI, how do I not bore people to fucking death on my TED Talk?
I do think mental health is just always going to be the hardest thing for us. It's going to be so hard, harder than a lot of the biology that we're going to solve, I think. And it's just because like we're story creatures. This is something I write about all the time. And so like, you know, this is a Malcolm Gladwell essay that there are certain societies where suicide never existed, right? And then all of a sudden from Western culture, just that meme appeared.
Yeah.
And then suicides, like one guy committed suicide, and then the next year, like 50 people, the next year after that, like 1,000 people. In this one society, this never happened. And like, you can have a chat GPT or anything be like, yeah, don't kill yourself because it will make 50 gazillion reasons, right? And this is just a dumb meme that didn't exist in your culture, and you guys did fine without this meme forever, right? Like, I don't know, like it's, like memes and things like that are so insanely powerful, and social contagion is so powerful. Like a teenage girl cutting herself in the 90s, when it was so hip back then. You can't be like, oh, just like don't, like here's the answer, like don't do that, because that's like silly and lame and probably self-destructive and probably doesn't, whatever you're trying to do. I mean, unless you want attention, then yeah, it's getting you attention, so maybe do it. You're right, or whatever. I don't know. Like humans we're so just story and oriented, and we want to be part of a bigger story than ourselves, even if that's, you know, life is meaningless, and so I'm going to take my life or whatever, right? I don't know. Like I just don't know.
But what if when you put it in, what if you put in your problem and it doesn't just give you like a text-based answer? It generates like a Pixar film for you. It generates like a 2-minute Pixar film, and it takes all of your like metadata that's been collected on you over the last 15 years. So it knows exactly the mimetic images that you resonate with. It knows like what like little character you're going to find the most emotionally engaging. It creates a symbolic structured narrative that is like interfacing with your own personal symbolism. And then
Let me stop right there. Like, can I gotta stop right there? You just shattered my cynicism because this is okay. Like that's the answer, right? I don't know. Like
right.
I remember a lot of stories came out about this years ago, where when you would see a movie, especially like the big news here was like a VR movie that's like immersive, and it would show what it was like in Guantanamo Bay or whatever. It would like actually people's opinions, and there's like super data on this. So like if you had this experience, it will move you and it will change your opinion. And dude, now you're talking. Okay,
right?
I'm on board. Man.
Yeah, man. I mean, I didn't think about it until it was just a thought that was like a pushback thought from what you were saying. And so it's a novel like concept to me too. As I was saying it, it was making me really excited because it's like, I don't know, maybe, that is a tremendously powerful tool for evil. But one would hope that like an artificial intelligence kind of has like a baked in moralism. I mean, I would kind of imagine, I mean, it's going to tell us a lot about the structure of like reality, the way that AI, I think, organizes itself, because in a weird way, I mean, for me, I think that the whole purpose of life is to kind of self-organize in like a more and more personally moralistic fashion. And I think that an artificial intelligence is probably going to follow that path too. But who the fuck knows? It could be evil too. But yeah, man, I mean, yeah, you put in your problem, it generates like a little whatever, I was talking about this with someone yesterday about, the social dilemma. And one of the things that film made me realize is that, and I don't think they quite say it like this, but there's three-dimensional models of everything, right? Like we know how to model things in 3 dimensions, but the 4th dimension is time. And if we're creating a 4-dimensional model of a human being, then it's just a 3-dimensional model longitudinally, right? So every social media company has a 4-dimensional model of you that's at least 10 years old. And it's probably so much more complete than you could possibly imagine. It's just that humans don't have the processing power or the programming capability to take all of that metadata and synthesize it into something meaningful, because it's billions and billions and billions of bytes of data.
Or, like a really fascinating Google search or ChatGPT question, I've done both on this, is ask, how can social media predict the future?
Oh.
A lot of things come up. So for example, one is that's just kind of powerful, is Hollywood has always had a really hard time predicting which movies are going to do well at the box office.
Sure.
Well, I mean, like kind of a new metric that's like apparently works pretty well is to see how quickly a movie title trends on social once it's coming out at a specific date, and then they can actually like semi-accurately predict how well it's going to do at the box office, like better than they ever could have before. And a lot of things like that, like even, oh God, I forget what, I mean, it's worth Googling. I should write about this sometime because it's very interesting. But yeah, social media can predict the future of a lot of like global events. And presumably, I'm sure, because it does have a gazillion data points on us, it could be used to predict our future as well as individuals.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure in like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy kind of way, where like it's like the probabilities of things are probably like the idea of probability, I think, is probably going to be a bigger talk, like a word that's a buzzword in like in 10 years, because is it possible to predict the future? My personal humble opinion is probably not. But is it possible to predict probabilities on things happening and to have odds and spreads on where your life is going to go? I'm sure it is. And actually, it makes me think that's probably going to be something people are going to bet on.
Yeah. People bet on everything. Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm waiting for it. I am constantly in this space where I feel all at once very blessed to be a person that was, grown and raised in the 90s and was able to have an analog existence and the last version of analog existence. And in that life that I'm living, I'm constantly struck by how fast technology is moving and how fast we normalize it. And I'm also very struck by how insane it is that there's certain things that still feel like they're in the 50s, and there's other things that feel like they're still in the fucking Middle Ages. Mm-hmm. And like, not to I don't want to ignite the Palestine-Israel conflict conversation on this, but like, dude, is it 2023 or is it 1584, dude? You know what I mean? Like there's such a weird temporal displacement that happens not just in different parts of the world, but in different parts of our society, where some things are so fully modern that it'll just split your wig in two. And then other things are so frighteningly unmodernized, like dental technology, for example, things like that I'm always like, is it 2023 yet? You know what I mean? Like, I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for this because I think that it could fundamentally change the substance of human reality, and quick, and good, man. We need to be more mentally healthy, mentally competent as a society and as a race, as a human race. But generally, as Americans, man, we're so powerful. We have such tight control of the means of production on everything that a human needs to survive in this country. Literally, we could be isolationist in the same way that Japan is, and we wouldn't suffer very much for it. There's a few that we other places that are pretty important, but they're not things that we couldn't innovate past. And it's like, damn, dude, if we can get this country on board with solid, if everybody in this country was confident and relaxed, come on, brother. Like, that is a utopian society, and I think that mental health is at the crux of that. If we can get people access to resources that they understand and are not stigmatized. The biggest problem with therapy is that it's stigmatized. It's an anti-masculine modality of interfacing with your problems and your trauma. And we live still in a pretty masculinized society. And like, hopefully something that's like a little bit more, I don't know, agnostic, like AI, something that people can access and it doesn't feel so loaded with like cultural baggage, could really potentially help people and, I don't know, man, start the wave of changing our society to something that's more reasonable and connective and communicative.
Yeah, we should do a full episode on mental health sometime and the future.
Oh yeah, because I know you and I have. I'd love to go head to head with you on that one.
I mean, a lot of articles on places that I follow have come out recently saying psychiatry and psychology not only doesn't work most of the time, but more often than we want to admit, makes people's problems worse. And I've seen this firsthand with people in my life. So
same.
There's a lot to talk about there, and I hate to be a total downer on it, because I am optimistic that things will get better. I mean, we've come a long way since Freud, for God's sakes. So
yeah.
I will have to wrap this up right here. My computer's about to die. But I do want to say very quickly, as a quick just housekeeping note, that we just moved everything over to Substack. So you can go to teamfuturism.substack.com to subscribe there. I will be posting some articles there that won't be podcasts, but some content. And also, but the podcast will continue to stream on Apple, Spotify, all the usual places. And we will continue to be on YouTube. And so, yeah, we have a couple of exciting interviews booked coming up. And yeah, I mean, I'm just excited for the future of Team Futurism. Yeah.
Me too, man.
All right.
Growing the team.
Growing the team. Hey, till next time. Thanks, Devin.
Later, Pete.
Later.